You know, what is it that I love about the Chrysler 300? I mean, Gotham Hemi is my second one. I guess everything about this car is about the two B's, big and bold. Big Hemi engine, bold stylish exterior design, bold red leather interior, big panoramic roof, big and bold. So anything and everything that we have to put inside a Gotham Hemi has got to be equally as bold, right? The question is, what's next? What could we possibly add that she doesn't already have? How about a big ass screen? It's 2023, y'all. 8 inches? It's the size of my cell phone. This is supposed to feel like driving in the Batmobile, not like your grandmother's car. And right here, I got just the thing. 13.6 inches, CarPlay, Android 12, and oh yeah, I almost forgot. It's got physical buttons, y'all. This is the Pheonix Automotive Tesla Screen version 2 install and review coming right up after the intro. Let's get it. What's good, everybody? Mr. J here, and hey, you could be watching any other video here on YouTube right now, but you're right here watching this one. And it means a lot to me, and it's truly appreciated. With that, let's dive right into today's video. The Pheonix Automotive Tesla Screen version 2. I've been rolling around with this installed on Gotham Hemi for near 6 months now, so I can bring you the best possible review. Let's get into it. Heading on over to PheonixAutomotiveInc.com is where you can find and purchase this head unit. And if you don't have a 300, you are in luck, because they make this for several different makes and models. Everything under the Mopar umbrella is certainly covered, as well as a vast selection of just about everything. Give it a look. Chances are they got you covered. For the Chrysler 300, they fit in all of the second gen 300, thanks largely in part to the fact that Chrysler has not changed the car in over a decade. But hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? The head unit can be purchased in either gloss black with a silver bezel or completely gloss black, whichever you decide matches the interior best. The models come in at $850, $880, and $910 respectively, so $30 increase between each step up. For my configuration, I went with the all black 6GB RAM version, and what I was wanting here is the 6GB of RAM. In terms of storage, I don't foresee much need for more than 128 gigs. That's a lot of storage for what should mostly figure to be apps and music. Unless you're storing movies on the head unit, 128 gigs should be plenty of space. That being said, however, it's easy to overlook the need for it when looking at the associated cost, and even easier to cry about not having enough space later on down the road when you fill it up. As a general rule of thumb, I never skimp out on storage. But the most important part here is the RAM, as this will be directly impacting the usability of the unit in terms of boot, load, and multitasking times. The less RAM you have, the slower your unit will operate, and vice versa. However, I don't see the need to put this under a ton of multitasking stress, the same way that I would do with a phone. So going with the mid-range here should be plenty sufficient. That configuration brought me to $880, but after applying the 30% off coupon, which is always in the top banner of the site, the actual cost comes down to about $793. After paying the $20 shipping insurance, which I highly recommend with the purchase of this cost. I mean, we've all seen the videos of how these delivery folks simply don't care about our packages, right? Do yourself a favor. The discount code saves you $88. Putting $20 back into it will buy you a lot of peace of mind and protect you from a UPS driver drop kicking your parcel over the fence and potentially wasting nearly $1,000 in expenses. After shipping and taxes, the grand total came to $857.67. Now I know that people are going to say that this is way too much. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it is an expense. But what I will say is, you can always find cheaper things in a variety of different locations, sure. But in terms of name brand equipment that you would buy at reputable retailers, The price of this head unit for all the features it offers is very comparable to what you would get in similar name brand equipment. Now I hear you. Pheonix Automotive is hardly a household name. However, they are offering a niche product that no name brand is even close to offering. The closest that I found was an 11-inch horizontal Alpine that comes out to $1,400 before tax. So all things considered, these units are coming in at what I believe to be a competitive price. Once purchasing is complete, make sure to keep up in contact with Pheonix Automotive in their follow-up emails. They do make these units to order, and depending on the year of your car, it may or may not require a different wiring setup, as wiring changes from year to year. Additionally, you'll have the option to customize your buttons to, whatever functions you want at your fingertips. Pheonix Automotive makes this process easy, asking you for a photo of your existing head unit and a verification of the year of your car. Upon payment, the unit took 22 days to deliver. This is with standard shipping, as I don't believe in rush shipping. I mean, why would you pay extra just to still have to wait? You're paying to not wait, but you still have to wait. Just less waiting. At the end of the day, you're still waiting. How does this make sense? Packaging was very non-flattering, but the showstopper is what's inside of the package. And despite not having a very pleasing as far as unboxing goes, it was nice to see that the unit was very well packaged and protected. The head unit has a few key differences from its predecessor, which is why it's always best in terms of tech to never buy the first iteration of something. Wait until they work out the kinks and flaws with the first gen and go with the second gen. Most noticeable will be the inclusion of physical buttons and knobs. The prior version only retained a hazard light button to keep this unit street legal, but everything else was relegated to on-screen navigation. Notoriously, the sport mode button became buried under several layers of sub-menus, which, aside from being a pain in the ass, isn't the most ideal distraction while driving. Secondly, the design of the head unit has been changed to allow for true plug-and-play operation. No more cutting out the trim of your car is necessary to accommodate the new unit. You simply remove your existing screen and deck, and the unit will slide right in as it's always belonged there. All right, now heading on over to Gotham Hemi. If you are familiar with installing head units, I would say that this install ranks around a 3 out of 10 on the difficulty meter. It's really just more time consuming than it is difficult. If you have never installed a head unit before, I would say that, this becomes a little bit more difficult, but still remains a DIY install. If you've got any friends who have experience, invite them on over and it should be a breeze. Installation consists of removing the old head unit. Do this just above the lighter tray door, grasp the trim, and with firm, steady pressure, pull the trim straight out. All of the plastic trims are in place with tension clips and simply require the proper pressure to break free. Fear not, they are intended to work this way even if they do sound like they're breaking. Avoid any jerking or pulling in any direction other than straight outward, as this may cause the tension clips to snap. Once you've lifted the plastic trims, look for the screws holding all of the metal parts in place below. Once removed, the unit will remove from the dash. Simply locate each electronic harness attached to the back of the unit, unplug them all, and the old units will completely free from the dash. Now, before tossing the old units out the window, you will need to retain the vents and the clock from the old unit to place in the new unit. Same as the plastic outer trims, the vents are in place with snap together tension clips. However, these are a bit more tedious, and the plastic is a little bit more brittle as the clips are much smaller. Exercise a bit of caution when freeing these from the old housing. The clock is even a bit more tedious, as it has a single hard to reach screws that are poorly fashioned with metal screws seated inside of plastic moorings. Be very careful when we're both removing and reinstalling not to strip the plastic moorings. Additionally, the power cable on the clock, though not hard to remove from the OEM unit, was much harder to plug into the new unit when fitting it in. The cable does not have any extra length to it and makes fitting just a little bit tricky. Now, before jumping in and installing the new unit right away, you're going to want to get all of the power hooked up to the unit, test it, and make sure that everything is ordered. Last thing you want to do is fully install the unit only to find out that it doesn't boot up. The most tedious part of the head unit install is always wiring the new harness with the old harness. The older the car is from the unit, the more tedious it will become. As technologies change, so do the harnesses and wires themselves. For instance, in 2013, mainstream USB was vastly different than it is today, where we use USB-C. It's now the standard, but micro USB came and went in between. Gotham Hemi has used the old school full-size USB while the head unit operates on the more standard micro USB. So there will be several adapters in order to plug all of the old wires into the new tech. The easiest method that I've found when wiring the harness is to work backwards. Identify where the new wires go into the back of the head unit first and then wire them to the pairings of the old wires. This method I found helps simplify things a lot. Once you've figured out how to organize the bowl of spaghetti, it's time to mount the head unit into its final resting place. There will be included tension clips in the harness packaging that you will need to install in the OEM moorings before placing the head unit in place and applying firm pressure to snap the unit in its final resting place. And boom, there you have it. Hundreds of saved additional dollars for professional installation later, and there you have it. A big and bold screen to match the rest of the car. And I do have to say, it is quite the visual upgrade. But how does it all stack up? Is it worth it now that I've used it for 6 months? With anything, there is certainly positives and negatives, and thankfully, the positives vastly outweigh the negative. But clearly, the screen itself is a massive upgrade from the tiny little screen prior. The retention of buttons and knobs are a welcome addition to the prior version, and to my surprise, they are actually backlit with customizable RGB, a feature that I had missed when I was doing my initial purchasing research. Also is a must is the retention of the steering wheel controls. They all remain intact and operable, including now the addition of being able to go into the settings and customize them to different functions. So I don't really know what you would want to change them to. I guess it's always nice to have something and not need it, rather than to need it and not have it. If you're a user of Android, the UI operation will be second nature. If you're an Apple user, you may have a learning curve as this is an older version of Android, but it operates much as expected. Thankfully, this unit does support CarPlay, so if you are hard-baked into that Apple ecosystem, you can always use that and make the experience a little bit more friendly. Being that I operate within both ecosystems, I don't have any trouble operating the Android system, and honestly, I don't even bother with CarPlay at all. This unit is essentially a phone all on its own, so instead of running apps from your phone in your traditional head unit, you can simply go to the Play Store, install the apps directly to the unit, and run them natively on the unit. I simply connect the unit to the internet and I don't really worry about my phone at all. In terms of connectivity, the unit has its own app that uses to connect to your phone. I admittedly have not delved into the app much myself. Like I said, I like to run the unit separately as its own standalone device. But I will say that the initial setup seemed a little dated and clunky. I do daily with two phones, and depending on the trip, I may or may not have either one or both on me. So that assisted me in just using the head unit itself. Keep in mind now that this is an Android unit, not a traditional head unit. So instead of being like a stereo, you quite literally have a tablet in your dash. And with that comes some nuances that make it seem odd, but when you think about it, actually make perfectly sense. One of those quirks is Bluetooth connectivity. Instinctively, you will want to connect your phone via Bluetooth, but in the sense of doing it as you would in a factory unit, you will not be able to do so. Bluetooth connectivity is still there, but you have to do it via the app. Again, the process seems a little clunky to me, so I didn't mess around with it after, the initial setup. Your incoming calls will forward to your head unit, and you'll be able to make calls on the largest ever dial app, but text messages and alerts will not come across your head unit unless you are fully using the CarPlay app, which for me is perfectly within my preferences. I don't want to be distracted by alerts coming in, interrupting whatever I'm listening to, and just posing a distraction while driving. So for right now, I just use Wi-Fi sharing from my phone to give the unit a consistent internet connection. I find that to be the best method of connectivity for me personally, even if it is slightly annoying to have to turn on and off Wi-Fi sharing on my phone constantly throughout the day. The unit does have a SIM card slot that can be utilized to give the unit constant internet connection. To avoid this, any of your major cellular providers will be more than happy to supply you with one to tack on an additional charge to your bill. And eventually, I think that's probably where I will go. I'll take the SIM out of my iPad and put it in there to take advantage. But for now, I'm just gonna rough it out using the Wi-Fi sharing as long as I can take it. Since the screen is so big, a huge feature for my money is the split screen feature. I love utilizing this with my music playing on top and my maps climate control going on the bottom. This is where having those extra gigs of RAM come in most in handy, multitasking. A bigger downside of the unit is also its bigger upside, the size of the screen. Since it runs off Android, we are dealing with apps that are built within the architecture of our phones. And because of this, there is scaling issues across a lot of apps that are not optimized well for larger devices. So often things will appear to be really small, or icons won't scale up to take up the space within the screen. Now, I can appreciate small text. I run all of my devices with smallest text settings possible. But when driving, as you can imagine, it does come off somewhat of a distraction to try and hunt for that small icon while you can barely see whilst trying to maintain a visual on the road. Additionally, since the screen is so massive, sometimes these icons can be a bit of a stretch if they are in the corners of the screen. With the advent of folding phones, some apps do scale better than others, and it's those apps that I really find myself sticking with. And unfortunately, not all the apps will work in split screen, but all of the major apps that you would want while driving do. So it being an Android unit does come with its quirks versus a traditional head unit, but I would really call them more adjustments than issues. I certainly have no desire to go back. One thing that is going to be imperative to do initially is to customize your soundstage. First of all, the factory settings will not include your OEM subwoofer. You have to turn it on, as well as the volume will be set very low. So initially, if you don't find and alter those two settings right away, you'll be very disappointed with the audio quality of the head unit. But upon finding the appropriate settings and playing with the EQs and bass balancing apps, you can definitely restore your OEM soundstage like it never left. In fact, you can even make the entire system louder than it was before. But once you start delving into loudness, you certainly start sacrificing audio quality. Myself, I prefer audio quality to loudness, but this will actually certainly come in handy in the future with additional subs and amps getting installed in Gotham Hemi. Now, as far as bugs, I have only ever ran into two. Curiously enough, when turning on both heated seats and heated steering, it will often change the dashboard screen to another language, like German or something. I don't understand why, but cycling the two off and on again will restore it to English. It's a really weird bug, but not a huge thing in my deal, it's more of a curiosity. The other bug that I found was if you manually go into the reverse camera from the unit without putting the car in reverse, it will get stuck on that camera feed until you power cycle the unit, which means turning off the car and opening the door. I utilize a streaming rear view mirror, so I actually don't even use the head unit for its reverse camera anymore. And the only reason why I would ever go into that camera feed setting was for testing for this video. I could see that option being useful maybe if it was on a van or a truck, but this is literally going to be something that I never again try. But wanted to put it out there in case anybody expects to use this as a major feature. I don't know that somebody would be, but if you're out there, you're welcome, I guess. In conclusion, I know that just sounded like a lot of griping, but like I said, I wanted to deliver the most honest review that I can, so nothing gets unmentioned. But I would highly recommend this unit to anybody looking to upgrade their factory unit. It's big and bold, so it perfectly complements the 300's aesthetic, as well as goes a long way to modernize the interior element that honestly Chrysler had been slacking on with the minimal changes to the 300 over its 12-year run. If you're in the custom car community, this is certainly going to be that head turner of a mod that will get a lot of attention. But more than that, it's just simply a welcome upgrade to any 300 out there. From browsing on the gram to watching movies to watching YouTube and even playing a little bit of Xbox in between. Yeah, you heard me. That's what I said. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned as I will be dropping shorts for tips and tricks on customizing and using the head unit, as I know there's not a whole lot of material on it out there. And besides, this video's already been far too long to cram it in here. Well, folks, there you have it, my review of the second edition Pheonix Automotive Tesla Screen. Again, if you can afford it, I highly recommend it, as well as hope to look forward to seeing you again in the next install and review on the channel. Lock in that like button and subscribe button, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Let me know down in the description what you think of the Tesla Screen and what you think the improvements are from Generation 1 to Generation 2, and if you plan on getting it on your own ride. All right, everybody, I'm Mr. J. Peace.